And we're back for yet another dimension of that discussion, and that is the aspect related to competencies, and competencies, especially in the must-have categories. Here to talk about it, please welcome Crystal Cooke, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Hello, Crystal. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hi. And great to have you again at the second edition of our online version of D&I Changemakers 2021. Hi. Crystal, tell us a little bit more about your background. Why is it that you're so interested in this particular area? And tell us a bit more perhaps about the competency model itself.
Yes, thank you. First, I do want to start out by sharing that my pronouns are she, hers, and her. And for those who are only able to listen to this presentation, I wanted to share that I am an African American woman with latte brown skin. I have short, dark, curly hair. It's longer on the top, and it's a little highlights in there, and it's shorter on the sides. I'm wearing glasses, a white shirt with navy blue stripes, and I have on a gray jacket. I did want to give visual descriptions for those who may not be able to see or who may just be listening in, so they can have equal access to the information that that everyone else is receiving as well. And so I typically stand about 5'11", but I'm sitting at my home office today in Bowie, Maryland. Happy to join you all today. But quickly turning to the association, we are a member-based accounting association. We support our members' needs. One of those needs is diversity and inclusion, and my D&I team members and I work to encourage and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the CPA profession. And through our National Commission on Diversity and Inclusion, which is a volunteer committee that we have that champions and influences the accounting profession in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They determined that there was a need for D&I competencies to be embedded without our members' organizations. Primarily, one of our biggest members is our accounting firms. And so we came to the concept a couple of years ago that we needed to create a D&I competency model to help organizations embed those competencies into the other competencies that they give their staff to focus on throughout the year. And so we worked with one of our members on the NCDI is from the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, which I'm going to refer to as TRIAC. But they had already created an inclusive workplace competencies that were for international users. And so the framework was already built. It was already a good framework. So instead of recreating the wheel, we just decided to work with her and leverage their model. And so we use that to expand our current model to include our DEI competencies. So that's kind of where it came from.
Fantastic. Crystal, one of your underlying goals is basically to promote competency expectations and to make people understand that those competencies differ at different levels within an organization. Can we go perhaps for a couple of slides from your presentation to explain that deeper?
Yes. So if we can turn to the first slide, it's titled, "What is a competency model?" Because I think it's important for us to first be all on the same page as to what it is, which you'll see explained on this slide. I think they'll be pulling.
Hey, look.
Yes, there we go. So the next slide, or the first slide in there that says, "What is a competency model?" It walks through you'll find different definitions all throughout the internet, which are all great. I saw a whole bunch that I liked, but I pulled I put a group together on this slide that I thought resonated most with me. And so it's a collection of characteristics, skill sets, and attributes that will improve the efficiency of your performance. And so having competencies, of course, it helps you determine what you need to do to achieve success at your organization in your current role, at your current level, and it helps you advance to the next level. And so your HR team will typically put a whole list together. They can be done by role, by group, by organization, whatever fits your organization's needs. We typically do them. We did this by role because our CPA firms have different levels from the most junior level all the way up to the partner level. And so that was what we felt would resonate better with our members. But your organization has to decide what would be best for you. And so if you go into the next slide, you can actually see some of the roles. So it's an associate, which I mentioned is the most junior, all the way up to the partner. And so you'll see when I walk through the competencies in a second here, those are the ones, you'll see it laid out. And so next slide, though, you'll see are the core areas. I think it's important for you to focus on, decide as an organization where you want your company's competencies to come from. These are the ones that we decided resonated with the type of work that our CPA firms do. But you'll see number 6, which is why we're here today, diversity and inclusion. All of our competency models should have diversity and inclusion built in. It is separated on this slide just for visual sake, so that people don't miss them and know that they're not included, but really they are layered in throughout all of the other 5 areas as a piece of those. And so I did want to take some time to walk you through some of those, which you'll see on the next slide. So I've chosen to highlight only 3 of the 5 areas because we have a very short time frame today, and I want to make sure that we get to them all. So on the first slide, you'll see that I've chosen technical knowledge. If you could turn to that slide, please. So you'll see on this screen, on this slide, there are competencies that cross multiple areas. So there are ones that all levels should be focusing on. And there are some that are just for maybe a higher level, maybe if you're a partner. And so in this one, understands that a collective and individual intelligence increases in diverse groups. Everyone should understand that. Everybody should have that knowledge. Everyone should understand the different dimensions of diversity. If you don't know these things, your organization or your workplace should try and help you achieve those learnings. You can do it on your own, or your employer can offer different trainings and things to help you understand those things. For some competencies, like I mentioned, are just for upper management. So constantly in touch with industry market trends on how they inform and influence inclusion and diversity. You wouldn't expect a first year to have to, an associate, which is what we call our first or second years, to come in knowing about all of these things. But the partner who is making the business decisions, who is deciding how to evolve the organization, they should be more informed with the industry and understanding of those things. And so those are some examples of technical ones. If you can go to the next slide, the people slide. So this is probably the one that probably will resonate with most people. It's how you're developing your people every day. Again, you'll see across the top, there's 3 that we think everyone should be focusing on. We all should be taking regular unconscious bias training. This is another thing that your employer can offer to help your employees achieve this competency. Continuously learning and modeling inclusive behavior. Those are different types of competency that everybody should be doing. Being able to work in collaborative teams. Everyone should do that. Some differences though. Seniors and managers will be more advocates for diverse perspectives on the everyday team activity day to day. The senior manager and partner, those will be responsible for mentoring. The senior manager will probably be mentoring the managers below them, and the partners will be mentoring directors or managers, senior managers below them. So everyone should be bringing somebody up along with them, and that person may not necessarily look like them. They should look different than them. They can look alike, but it should be a diverse mix of people who you are mentoring and sponsoring. And to bring it to another level, partners should be sponsoring, right? You can't ask a associate who not yet has any power to sponsor. Only partners have that ability. They are the ones who are in the room making the decisions about who gets jobs and who gets promotions and those type of things. That should be in there. And then lastly but not least, I skipped over on the manager column. The manager is the one who builds the team, the engagement team for our firms. And so that person should have a competency where they are required to make sure that they are building a diverse team. And so you'll see kind of how the model lays out different traits for different roles. Some are consistent across, some aren't. The last example that I have on the next slide, which is the business development slide, there's understanding and communicating the importance of working in collaborative teams. But for the upper level management, they need to understand and be able to communicate the business case around why it's important. So when you're going out and getting jobs and getting on clients and doing work, you need to be able to explain to them why diversity and inclusion is important, why you think it's important. Because frankly, in our business, our clients are starting to demand that you understand the business case. So if you can't articulate it well, you might lose business that way. And so these are kind of examples of how the skill sets in our full model are laid out. Hopefully I explained
Crystal,
that well. I was trying to do it fast.
you did actually explain it very well, and you touched on some very important points. So obviously I was going to ask you if those competencies should be verified, but of course you answered that question in the presentation itself. Of course they should. And the question is how?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would even add on that during your performance reviews, that's when I think is a good place to evaluate it, and not annually. I think at the association, we do our performance reviews quarterly. And so each quarter you go through those competencies and say, hey, where are you at with this? Have you been able to get that unconscious bias training? Have you been able to do this, manager training on inclusivity and how to provide safe spaces for your staff? If not, how can I help you? That's kind of a good place to figure out where that's happening, if there's anything. And if you're a manager, it's a good time to solicit upward feedback. Am I being a good inclusive manager? Am I missing the mark on anything? And so I think that's kind of how the performance review process is how I think you can evaluate your success.
I'm afraid,
Go
paradoxically,
ahead. Sorry.
Crystal, paradoxically, your presentation may have made a number of top managers quite depressed, because for a while they may have thought it's only about getting the right D&I manager to get the organization's D&I right. And now you tell them at every single level of your organization, you need to be precise in how you adopt certain competencies. So the question is, what are those diversity, equity, inclusion competencies that should be present at each and every staff level?
Yep. So I walked through a few. There's a lot. And you'll see them. If you look at the triac model, you'll see them. If you actually look at the blog that I wrote, I think you referred to the blog.
That's exactly. I haven't mentioned that yet. Can you elaborate?
Yeah.
Can you send our audience to the blog, because you keep writing interesting content about how to do these things?
Yes. So as a part of the association, we created a blog that kind of outlined the competency model, and I'm happy to share the link with everyone so that they can access that later. But it walks through some of the competencies that are good competencies to have at the various levels and how to incorporate the competency model. And so there's some specifics in there. I know we have short time today, but I also walked through a few earlier. So for instance, unconscious bias training. Everybody needs that, regardless of what level you're at. And I think it should be annually. I think it should be something that we're all required to attend, that it's not optional. The people who need it.
Yes, it's the second time you mentioned unconscious bias. Cognitive biases altogether is a big topic under D&I, isn't it?
Yes. And it's because they're unconscious. We do things unconsciously. We don't know that we're doing them. And so we need to implement traits and skill sets to help us recognize where we may have bias, to be able to combat it before we even go there. And so that, I think, is important. And it needs to happen annually. We all have it. If you watch TV, if you are on social media, we have it. And so we need to work to be able to work around it, and to be able to recognize when we may go there, to be able to put in other factors around us. And so that's something that I think every employee should have across the board.
We couldn't agree more. Just to give an idea to our audience, if you'd like to read some of the blog content, the basic address is blog.aicpa.org. This is where you can find it. Crystal, we have less than a minute left. Would you like to close with a closing word of advice for managers who want to, perhaps for employers who want to develop some of these competencies a little better, perhaps?
Yes, I will also say when we were, you had asked, I was walking through the different competencies that managers have versus um, partners and seniors. I think I also mentioned that um, mentorship and sponsorship, I think earlier, and I think those are great ways to help advance minorities, ethnic minorities, all kinds of LGBTQ, all those kinds of groups, disabilities. You can implement these programs. They can be formal programs. We also have resources on how, for organizations of any size, how to develop a mentorship program, a sponsorship program. Having those intentional, where you match people up with people in the firm, it helps, or the organization. It helps grow your staff, because the whole end game is we want to be more diverse. We want to be more inclusive, and we want everyone to have equitable opportunities. And so that's kind of a way you can help combat that. And so I think those are that built in as a part of the whole competency model, and holding everyone accountable. That's also key. Accountability is key for any of this. So you can give all these metrics and all these skill sets, but if you never hold anybody accountable to doing it, they won't do it. And so you need to make sure that you are holding your staff accountable and showing it as a priority.
I wouldn't have put it better myself. Crystal Cooke, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you. It was great to be here again. Enjoy the rest.
Great.